Welcome to Crossroads. The Trump campaign says it's been hacked. Now, it's alleged an Iranian hacker group stole internal memos, including a 270-page dossier and his running mate, J.D. Vance. Then the alleged Iranian hackers leaked these documents to a couple news outlets, one of them being Politico. The breach follows recent warnings, notably that Iran and other countries were trying to tamper with U.S. elections. And, as global conflicts rise around the growing axis of Iran, China, and Russia, this recent breach is actually a lot broader than just, election interference. Now, to start, I should just mention, look, the recent breach of the Trump campaign is being pinned on Iran. Now, I could see this being plausible, but I'd also say you never know. Remember back in 2016, we were told that Russia was doing the exact same thing. They were accused of breaching the Democrat campaign servers. It's possible, but evidence later suggested that it also could have been an internal breach. There were accusations that President Donald Trump had encouraged this, although notably, that claim was from comments he made that were taken out of context. And then that was used to frame a larger scandal. And remember, at that time, later on, when the whole Trump-Russia dossier was leaked, which was also heavily in response to investigations into whether Trump had colluded with Russia on the Democrat server breach, we also later found out it was just opposition research. It wasn't real. So now we have a very similar situation, only this time it's the Republican networks being breached, not the Democrat networks. And this time the stolen documents are being provided directly to a news outlet. So the situation with this server breach is, flipped this time around. And also this time there's a very real growing global axis forming, which again includes Iran, the country this is being pinned on. And this makes the situation a whole lot more complicated. Now first, let's have a look at what just happened. Politico said this. Former President Donald Trump's campaign said Saturday that some of its internal communications had been hacked. The acknowledgement came after Politico began receiving emails from an anonymous account with documents from inside Trump's operation. It says the campaign blamed foreign sources hostile to the United States, citing a Microsoft report on Friday that Iranian hackers, quote, sent a spear phishing email in June to a high-ranking official on a presidential campaign. A spear phishing email, notably, would be someone sends you an email address and maybe there's an infected link in there. You click it, it infects your computer. Or sometimes it might even just opening the email might infect your computer with a script. But they say that Microsoft did not identify the campaign targeted by the email and declined to comment on Saturday. So it's not fully confirmed yet. Now it notes that Politico has not independently verified the identity of the hacker or their motivation, and a Trump campaign spokesperson, Stephen Chung, declined to say if they had further information substantiating the campaign's suggestion that it was targeted by Iran. Now they note on July 22nd, Politico began receiving emails from an anonymous account. Over the course of the past few weeks, the person who used an AOL email account and identified themselves only as Robert relayed what appeared to be internal communications from a senior Trump campaign official. It says a research dossier the campaign had apparently done on Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, which was dated February 23rd, was included in the documents. It says the documents are authentic, according to two people familiar with them, and granted anonymity to describe internal communications. One of the people described the dossier as a preliminary version of Vance's vetting file, right? They want to check him out, find out what he's about. It says the research dossier was a 271-page document based on publicly available information about Vance's past record and statements, with some, such as his past criticisms of Trump, identified in the document as potential vulnerabilities. It says the person also sent part of a research document about Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who was also a finalist for the vice presidential nomination. The person said they had a variety of documents from Trump's legal and court documents to internal campaign discussions. Now, on this note, the story pointing to the Iranian breach came out just prior to this. And so kind of the basis of how they say, Iran breached the servers, at least on the surface, it was based on this. Let me show you the analysis on the campaign from the Microsoft Threat Analysis Center. They said this on August 9th. Foreign malign influence concerning the 2024 U.S. election started off slowly, but has steadily picked up pace over the last 6 months, due initially to Russian operations, but more recently from Iranian activity. It says this third election report from the Microsoft Threat Analysis Center, or MTAC, provides an update on what we've observed from Russia, Iran, and China since our second report in April of 2024. Over the past several months, we have seen the emergence of significant influence activity by Iranian actors. Iranian cyber-enabled influence operations have been a consistent feature of at least the last 3 U.S. election cycles. Iran's operations have been notable and distinguishable from Russian campaigns for appearing later in the election season and employing cyber attacks more geared toward election conduct than swaying voters. It says recent activity suggests the Iranian regime, along with the Kremlin, Russia, may be equally engaged in election 2024 right now. It notes further in that Iranian actors have recently laid the groundwork for influence operations aimed at U.S. audiences and potentially seeking to impact the 2024 U.S. presidential election. This recent cyber-enabled influence activity arises from a combination of actors which are conducting initial cyber reconnaissance, meaning they're using cyber attacks to kind of like look at the landscape or maybe breach different systems just to gain access to them and see how they can use them. And then it says they're also seeding online personas and websites into the information space. So personas being maybe fake influencers or actual influencers who they may be feeding information to, and also websites, they're either creating new websites or feeding information to websites they can influence. So they're using surface, people you can watch online, and they're also looking at what they can breach and steal using cyber operations. Two-tiered, right? Now, the Microsoft document details, more how Iranian hackers are working closely with both Russian and Chinese Communist Party groups on their cyber operations. So it appears this is not just limited to Iran, it's also Russia to an extent, and China, and the combination of their networks launching these types of attacks and influence operations targeted at influencing the American elections in 2024. A heavy focus of the campaign is influence operations, using huge networks of controlled accounts, propaganda news websites, propaganda video channels, and also similar things like this. The idea of an influence campaign is, of course, you want to influence certain individuals to carry your message or to change their opinions. It's a type of, worldview warfare. When it comes to elections, part of that may be trying to change the opinions of influencers or politicians, making it so that they become voices of a particular narrative. The other side is you want to influence the voters themselves, change their worldview, change what they think about a certain individual in order to change the outcome this time of the election. Now, it also details several hacker groups involved in this operation. 4 out of the 6 it identifies are backed by Iran. And it's partially this part that really details the cyber breaches. I'll be talking more about this after we come back from a quick break.
Experts agree. One of the best ways to protect against financial uncertainty is to diversify your portfolio. Learn how physical gold and silver can secure your retirement funds from today's economic challenges with a gold IRA from American Hartford Gold. You can safeguard your wealth with no penalties or taxes when you transfer your current qualifying retirement accounts. Call now and our precious metals specialists will send you a free information kit, no cost or obligation. American Hartford Gold, a trusted industry leader with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, has a 5-star rating from thousands of happy clients. Whether you are getting physical precious metals in a gold IRA or delivered to your doorstep, we offer only the highest quality gold and silver. For your peace of mind, we also offer a no-fee buyback commitment, a low-price guarantee, along with free shipping and free insurance. So don't wait. Call the number on your screen today and secure your financial future.
Welcome back. The Trump campaign says that some of its internal documents on the election have now been hacked. Now, it's alleged that an Iranian hacker group stole internal memos, including a dossier on J.D. Vance, the Republican vice presidential nominee. The breach follows recent warnings that Iran was trying to tamper with U.S. elections, including from a Microsoft Threat Analysis Center report and also the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Now, on the Microsoft document, it actually details how Iranian hackers are working closely with Russian and Chinese Communist Party groups on these cyber operations. It also details several hacker groups involved in this operation. Notably, 4 out of the 6 that it identifies as running these things are in fact backed by Iran, at least according to Microsoft. And it's this part that really details the cyber breaches. Because remember, we talked about influence operations. This is the actual cyber part. These are some of the keynotes in the Microsoft document. Again, August 9th. One of the groups it identifies as Lemon Sandstorm Fox Kitten. And look, bear with me, they tend to make these kind of weird names to identify different hacker groups. They're kind of like military terminology they use just as designators, right? Unit designators. So they call this one Lemon Sandstorm Fox Kitten, which could identify both the specific breach and the pseudonym they've given to the group running it. Then this one on it, they say, Iranian threat actor known for ransomware, hack and leak operations, meaning you take over someone's computer, you lock them out, and then you hold it ransom. And so you don't let somebody get access to the computer unless they pay a bribe or something like that. And then they also hack it and then leak it, meaning they breach you and then leak something online, probably to destroy your reputation. They say this group reportedly gained access to a local U.S. election results website back in 2020. And the attack was reportedly thwarted by U.S. Cyber Command. But officials predicted that the group may have sought to tamper with the displayed results to undermine trust in the election outcome. Another group they say they've designated as Mint Sandstorm Charming Kitten. It says ahead of the 2020 U.S. presidential elections, they unsuccessfully attempted to log into accounts of Trump administration officials and Donald J. Trump for president campaign staff. So this group, notably based on known attempted breaches, actually was trying to gain access to accounts of the Trump campaign, Trump himself, and also administration officials. Now, another group they say they've designated as Peach Sandstorm APT 33. APT means Advanced Persistent Threat. And typically those are, big state-run hacker groups. They've designated this one APT 33, meaning that this is just the 33rd one they're tracking. And note this one targeted U.S. state government agencies in late September of 2022, possibly to gain access ahead of close U.S. Senate elections. While that attempt appeared unsuccessful, it suggests that Peach Sandstorm may be positioned to support election-related influence operations. So this one, again, was actually trying to breach, it seems, some of the election systems. Now, also, remember this. Back in July of this year, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence released a statement saying that various foreign actors had specifically targeted presidential campaigns in order to influence the upcoming elections. Now, on Russia, it said this: these actors are seeking to back a presidential candidate in addition to influencing congressional electoral outcomes, undermine public confidence in the electoral process, and exacerbate socio-political divisions. Meaning, they want to, again, maybe try to back the campaigns of certain public officials they may think are more in favor of what they want to accomplish in the world. A lot of that would probably be around maybe the Russian proposed side for the peace deal in Ukraine. They want to get what they want out of it, and they want U.S. officials who would back what they want, or at least open the door for it. They also, it says, want to undermine public confidence in the election process. Maybe make Americans no longer believe their vote counts, or something like that. And they also want to exacerbate socio-political divisions. Notably, this is important because for a lot of other countries hostile to the United States, they don't necessarily view Republicans or Democrats They view both of these as being just part of the American system. And for them, if they can drive a wedge within American society and maybe sharpen the divisions, make people more at odds with each other, that for them is causing divisions within America, not just within our normal political debates. And so by exacerbating socio-political divisions, they're turning Americans against each other, suggesting they might actually back both sides and then try to manipulate it to cause both sides to fight more. The Director of National Intelligence also says the Chinese Communist Party probably does not plan to influence the outcome of the elections. Again, Xi Jinping himself actually said publicly he was not going to do it this time. Take that for what it is, because they might not be telling the truth, frankly. But it says, however, quote, the intelligence community is also aware that PRC, People's Republic of China, influence actors are using social media to sow division in the United States and portray democracies as chaotic. And so influence actors, again, fake YouTubers, fake social media accounts, fake influencers, or even just journalists they can control, they're using these individuals to try to sow the image that democracy itself, that free societies are chaotic. And so they want to paint America as being unstable. You know, one of the big narratives the CCP uses to justify its totalitarian rule is it says that, you know, basically we can't have peace unless you have totalitarianism. Or, you know, you can't have peace without an, absolute dictatorship of a communist party. And so they try to portray free societies as being chaotic as a way of justifying their own type of rule. Now on Iran, it says this: the IC, intelligence community, has observed Tehran, Iran, working to influence the presidential election, probably because Iranian leaders want to avoid an outcome they perceive would increase tensions with the United States. Now look, this could be a test for the Democrats on their stance on foreign meddling in an election. Because look, if you're a political campaign and someone just suddenly hands you all the information you could ever dream of to launch political attacks or frame narratives based on internal conversations, memos, documents, and even research that your opposition has done on itself, noting all their vulnerabilities, all their policies that might be problematic, all the possible attacks that might be launched against them. I mean, that's a roadmap to, really strong propaganda or really strong, election campaigns to, note the vulnerabilities of your adversary. The temptation would be very high on that, and frankly, I think a lot of people would probably use it. But for Democrats, of course, this is going to be complicated because, again, since they're the incumbent party, Joe Biden is president, they, of course, have to look at this both as a type of, foreign meddling in the election, and also, again, as stolen documents being used to alter the outcome of the election. And given the fact that, there were some of the bigger voices for years talking about foreign meddling and election interference and so on, this could be kind of a test for them on whether they choose to use that information and how they kind of balance that. Not to mention the fact that, actually they've taken a pretty strong stance against China, Russia, and Iran right now. And so allowing these countries to actually successfully launch information campaigns would be damaging to their overall goals of, trying to oppose these groups and the effect they're trying to have within the United States. On the other side, if news outlets publish information from the leaked documents, it will look like Iran and possibly Russia and maybe the CCP as well are being permitted to interfere in our elections. And that's going to be complicated because in America, for the most part, we have freedom of the press. There are some limits to it depending on, foreign interference and foreign agents and things like that. But for the most part, if a news outlet gets information, they're free to publish it. And so for the news outlets that have received this, some of it's probably going to be on their own discretion of whether they actually publish it and whether they actually use it. We'll see how far they go with it, given, again, many of these same news outlets that may be receiving it were also some of the louder voices talking about the threats of, foreign meddling in our elections. And if you're dealing with something that could undermine the integrity of the elections from a known foreign actor, then of course it's going to be controversial if you publish anything on it. But look, there's also a key difference right now between the analysis of the breach this time and the analysis of the breach back in the 2016 elections, because remember, that was pinned on Russia. The 2016 case, notably, They had digital forensics done by a private security company. And, when the FBI tried investigating the foreign breach of the elections, they were not actually given access to the actual machines. They had to go by the word of the company that had been hired to investigate it. And so with the whole, Russian breach of the elections back in 2016, there was never really a proper investigation, at least not at the time. The current breach was warned about by Microsoft, right? And so it's another company doing it technically, but there are also stronger government resources in place to prevent foreign interference in our elections in ways like this. Of course, the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, they have now also made their assessment that there was at least attempted breaches, and there are campaigns being designed to influence our elections from the same threat actors they're identifying: Russia, Iran, and China. So look, right now we're going to have to wait and see what analysis is done on the government side to actually prove whether or not this was Iran. Because remember, the Trump campaign right now is saying Iran hacked their systems, Iran leaked it. It's not totally proven just yet. We have circumstantial evidence, at least on the surface. Maybe it's possible they were told things behind the scenes if, again, the Director of National Intelligence was tracking these groups, or other government organizations were tracking these groups, or maybe Microsoft had information. We only know for now what is shown publicly. Publicly, what we see is evidence of attempts to breach the networks, intent to breach the networks, groups trying to do it and failing, and then a breach taking place, and then a leak taking place. And so the connecting dots between those is not 100% filled in yet. We'll probably get more answers as it goes forward. As of this moment, it does look like it's pretty plausible that someone did in fact steal the documents and leak them. The big question now is whether it was a foreign government that did it. But look, it's also possible news outlets could use information in the breach as fodder for stories without actually having to cite the alleged stolen documents. And this could actually go both ways, right? It could be that a news outlet, okay, they're not going to quote this document, but they might use the analysis of the vulnerabilities of J.D. Vance, for example, in the dossier that was leaked, as notes for further investigation, and then use that as the basis of maybe future pieces they might want to do that could impact the outcome of the election. Now, again, that could go both ways. Again, on one side, news outlets and political groups, they can use it for opposition research, and they don't necessarily have to cite, according to this leaked document. They can just use it for leads, in other words. They don't have to necessarily cite the document. They do articles based on the direction that it would guide them towards. But look, on the other side, this also creates a lot of complications as well, because the Trump team, they can write off any kind of reporting or internal information being made public as being tied to this cyber breach now. And so now they have a plausible form of deniability. Hey, you got that from stolen documents. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We don't know now. Hey, that opposition research sounds a whole lot like what we warned about in this dossier that was leaked to you by suspected foreign, hackers who are trying to influence our elections, and therefore, by publishing this opposition research, you're working with this foreign threat actor, right? Remember back in 2016, that was the big narrative against Trump. He's a Russian agent, right? Because, again, Russia was accused of the breach, and anytime he did something related to information that might have come out from that breach, he was called a Russian agent. The narrative could be flipped now using that same narrative. Now, the problem is, if you're a political organization, you're probably doing opposition research regardless during a major election. And if you're a journalist, you're probably doing some research as well. And so they're probably researching some of these avenues in general. It's not necessarily tied to the breach. But now what happens is on both sides, they have a roadmap of where to look, and they also have a way of denying any kind of allegation, accusing them maybe of using foreign research or even colluding with a foreign government with the intent of altering the outcome of our elections. So in terms of sowing chaos, in other words, this actually goes a long way to do it, frankly. This will also bring attention to the other side of this breach, which is fake news websites and influencers being used by Iran, the Chinese Communist Party, and Russia for influence operations. I'll be talking more about these influence operations and what it means for the US elections, That'll be only, though, on epochtv.com. So if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble, there's a link in the description below. Click on that. You'll get access to the rest of this episode and also our whole library of shows and our hard-hitting documentaries on issues that really matter, like the Chinese Communist Party's 100-year plan to defeat the United States. The CCP is one of the biggest threats to this country. They're using things like propaganda, even video games, entertainment, movies, culture, to subvert and influence the next generation. This unrestricted war against our country is one of the scariest but least understood issues of our time. Because, it's not tangible. It's all being done through soft power and ideological subversion. I spent over a decade investigating the CCP's subversion. And it's such an important issue that I made a documentary called The Final War. This exposes the 100-year plot of the CCP to take down America. If you'd like to find out more about what the CCP is doing and plotting against the United States, watch The Final War. You can find the link in the description below, and I'll show you all the trailer before we go exclusively to epochtv.com for the rest of this episode. I'll see you there.
The greatest threat facing the United States is the CCP.
The Epoch Times investigation team had studied the CCP for years, but what we uncovered was yielding evidence beyond our imagination.
With Chairman Mao, with the Prime Minister, our talks have been characterized by frankness.
The Clinton administration said, "Oh, don't worry about it. This will be a poison pill for China."
China's strategic goal is to make sure that the U.S. has 4 enemies, and one of them must be a terrorist group.
We are giving of our life's blood so that the Chinese Communist Party can survive and thrive.